staff, boys and girls, thank you for joining us once again for Carnivore Stories, etc. Today, my very, very special guest is Chris, and he has a very interesting background to share with us and a journey into the carnivorous way of living. We're not even going to call it a diet anymore because it's nothing of the sort. It's a way of living, it's a way of being, it's the species-appropriate, species-specific way of being. And anyone that wants to disagree with us is welcome to, but they can do that elsewhere because we're not having disagreement here on my channel. That's hate speech. Chris, welcome to the show. I know this is your first ride on the crazy train. Welcome. The main thing is to keep your arms and legs inside the vehicle throughout the ride. In the meantime, tell us about yourself, tell us about your background, how you came across the carnivore diet, all that kind of stuff. All yours.
All right. Well, first off, for those who don't know me, my name is Chris, and I've been on the carnivore diet for, well, actually me and my family have been on the carnivore diet for roughly a year now, including my 1-year-old. As soon as she started eating solid foods, we started feeding her a carnivorous diet, or hyper-carnivorous, if that's what you want to call it. So how I came across this diet was, well, just like anybody else come across as anything in the internet. And I've always been, interested in human physiology and nutrition. And it's always interested me to a point where I would spend some of my spare time looking up studies or listening to other people's, all the fads that go around and whatnot, whether I call bullshit sustainable, or maybe there's something to this. So so I came across the carnivore diet, and initially I call it bullshit. I was like, there's no fucking way.
Fair play.
I was like, you're telling me that you can only eat meat, red meat in particular, and thrive off of it? I was like, no. And I was like, no, because my thought process was always humans were omnivores. That was always my thought process. So when I started doing more research, or started looking more and more up, I started listening to more and more people, and especially how they were curing ailments such as diabetes, obesity. I was like, you know what? All right, let me give it a shot. So I started it purely on my own accord without involving my family, and I tried it myself for a couple months. Within a couple months, I lost maybe 20 pounds. And I was like, oh my God. I'm like, this is insane. And I kept all my muscle mass because I'm into, I go to the gym a lot and I'm a bit of a fitness nut. So I kept all my muscle mass and I started seeing my abs again. So I was like, oh man. I'm like, this is insane. And I felt great too at the same time. So I didn't do it because I know what you preach. You preach like, you did it way too fast. And unfortunately, I did that. I started it way too fast, and it didn't affect me that much. It didn't affect me for that long, I should say. The first 4 days was pure fucking hell. And I was like, oh man, this is not good. But once I came to the 5th, and then I started feeling a little bit better. And then on the 6th, I was like, hey, you know what? I feel like I have a lot more energy actually now. So I think that was my microbiome starting to adjust, and there was that initial boost of energy. But now, my energy levels have stabilized and I feel great. I'm actually still losing weight. I started this diet when I was 215 pounds. Now I'm down to 170. As far as I can tell, I've retained most, if not all, my muscle mass. So I'm also looking great at the same time. Our daughter, me and my wife's daughter, both of our daughters actually, are actually doing really great. My oldest daughter is, she's 6, and she's suffered from severe eczema since she was maybe a couple months old. And, once we introduced this diet, because I've always knew something was amiss, and that's when I started to do my research, like on what in the hell causes this, because I had eczema when I was a kid as well, and I was like, oh, maybe it's just genetic, maybe it just can't be helped, and and then I started seeing, like, there was like a week where whatever I bought, like, I think I went a week before I even started this diet. I went a week of just going, because when I go to the store, I see deals. I buy it up. So there was a week where I bought a lot of meat, and so I fed her, purely based because I was there. I fed her a lot of meat mixed with some greens here and there, and I saw some improvement in her eczema. And I was like, and by the week's end, I was like, okay, hold up. Something, I'm like, okay, there's something in her diet that her body just doesn't like. So, later we find out that it could have been anything, but I have a suspicion that it's a massive excess of carbs that was in our diets, and that's, as far as our 1-year-old, she is actually doing great. She is fantastic. Actually, she's growing faster than what she should, or what we think she should. As far as I can tell, I haven't heard any other stories on this whatsoever. I don't know if you have. Have you?
Yeah. Yep. Kids,
Okay.
growing rapidly and being strong and robust and intelligent and bright and, all of that, just because they've been fed appropriately and correctly according to their species. It's criminal. Frankly, these parents need to be locked up and re-educated that children should absolutely have a balanced diet full of carbohydrates and avoid the very thing that they actually should be eating.
Yeah, and I wasn't initially. I wasn't going to with our. This was before, she got to actually eating solid foods. But initially I wasn't going to, and then I started reading up a lot more about this, and actually looking at our history as a species, and started, the things started to click in my brain, and I was like, you know what, this is working so well for me. And by the time she started eating, my wife started eating this way as well. And, I was like, you know what, let's just only give her meat. Just give her meat. We'll give her some cheese. She's more, I don't eat berries. I don't eat anything that's not meat. So I'm a little bit more stricter on this carnivore diet. With my daughter, I don't do that as much. Or with my daughters. With my daughters, I don't do that as much. I'll give her some berries here, there. But yeah, the absolute progress that we've seen, it trumps my oldest daughter's progress a little bit, because unfortunately with my oldest daughter, I didn't discover this. But it trumps my oldest daughter's progress in the extent of, like, even the doctors say that she is a little abnormally strong for her age. And I'm very, very thankful that I've come across this diet, and I don't plan on looking back. It's gotten me to a place where I want to be, and unfortunately, and also, like you said, when we started this video, it's not a diet. It's not. It's actually, it's funny because me and my wife were literally just saying this before I got on the video with you, is that it's not a diet anymore. It's a lifestyle, because now we really don't know any other way of eating. Because, yeah, I mean, this is something 100% sustainable. And now we don't even think about it at all. We just do it. So today, when I go to the grocery store, I call up the wife. I'm like, hey, babe, what kind of meat do you want to eat today? It's not, it's not what you want to eat. It's just turned into what meat do you want to eat today? So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. So remind me, how long did you say you've been in this lifestyle?
Roughly a year,
right.
But I've always been primarily a meat eater before that.
Yeah. Okay.
I grew up in an Italian family,
mm-hmm.
So that's a lot of freaking pasta. And since I was a kid, my parents always joke with me saying that you're not a real Italian because I don't like pasta. I mean, I'll eat it if there's a lot of meat in it. Right. That's about it.
Here's another test for you. Does pineapple go on pizza?
No.
I'm not sure we can be friends.
Yeah,
No, we can. I don't eat pizza anymore, so I don't care. I don't have any skin in the game now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, yeah.
I mean, the reason I asked you how long that you've been living this lifestyle on the carnivore diet, and you say about a year, is that clearly, obviously, because of that, you haven't had a shit for a year. So you must be pretty stopped up by now, because there's no way you can go to the toilet without eating fibre, clearly. So tell us all about the constipation that you're suffering.
Bullshit. Absolute bullshit. And I know you know it's bullshit.
Yeah. Oh, look, I lay a rope every day. No problem, no pushing, no straining. It's not even chopped into stanzas. Like the machine in the McDonald's, like got done, we're out of here, no problems. Every day without fail, just about.
Yeah, absolutely none. No problems. I mean, unless you're eating a lot of chicken breast, then you got bigger problems.
Yeah, exactly.
Constipation, least of them.
Yeah, that too. Also, clearly all your teeth have fallen out, your gums bleed. You actually died of scurvy about just short of a year ago, because it only takes about 6 weeks to die of scurvy if you don't eat any vitamin C, of course. And given that you stopped eating any plant material, which is the only place you can get vitamin C, obviously, because that's what we're told, you should be well dead by now. So tell us all about your death, the funeral. How was that for your family?
Well, I haven't died on the outside yet, but I'm definitely dead on the inside.
I see. Tell us about that. Lay on the couch. Tell the teddy bear. Show us on the bear where the bad people touched you with their ideas about plants and things.
Hold on. Let me grab Bob real quick.
Good.
So this is Bob.
Hello, Bob.
Yeah. So this is Bob, and he says that everything's okay, everyth's fine, and he promises.
Good. Although he looks a bit like a vegan. He looks a bit skeletal. He looks like he's had a shortage of protein in his diet lately, and a bit of fat seems to be missing.
Yeah. He, long enough on the vegan diet, that'll do that to you.
Yeah. All right. So no problems with the carnivore diet then. No constipation. No scurvy. Tell us about the bowel cancer.
It's actually funny you say that. It's because I thought I had colon cancer when I was eating I guess what you could say, your standard American diet.
Yeah.
Not to go too graphic.
Oh, hey, what the hell? We're all friends here.
What the hell, yeah. Not to go too graphic, like I said, but, I was bleeding a lot down there when I was going to the bathroom. After, just eating normally. I thought, actually, not eating normally, I was eating what they said you're supposed to eat. Greens, carbs, starches, a little bit of meat here and there. No, and then that's when I actually started, developing these symptoms, and I was like, what the absolute shit is going on? I'm like, I'm eating what they're supposed to, what they told me I was supposed to be eating. And no, but since I've been on this diet, that has not even once slightly been an issue at all.
Awesome.
And I went to go get checked out, and they were like, oh, you're just, they just told me you're constipated. I'm like, how is that possible? I'm eating fiber. Like, I'm eating the appropriate amount of fiber that I was told to do. And it was just, apparently my body just didn't like it.
Yeah.
And then later when I learned that fiber obviously cannot be broken down, that's the only purpose it serves is a filler, adding bulk.
Yes.
So I'm like, well, okay, well then no shit.
Exactly. Yeah. Literally adding bulk because you can't break it down, you can't digest it. Sure, a small amount of fermentation of fibres occurs in your colon there. You have one or two bacteria that can achieve a little bit of that, but most of it passes through untouched. But it doesn't untouch your enteric cells that line your colon. Man, it's like passing sandpaper through there. It really rips up the situation. It really causes a problem, inflammation. It causes all sorts of aberrant messages in terms of muscle contraction and all sorts. It opens up basically wounds in your colon that can bleed, that can let all sorts of nasties get in there and get into your bloodstream, and it can really, really mess you up, frankly. Anyone that says you must have fibre in your diet is a fucking idiot, frankly. There is absolutely no evidence anywhere in the science that tells us we must consume any amount of fibre. The exact amount of fibre that a human being requires is not 1 single gram ever. And I really seriously suggest, if you do nothing else in your lives, people, if you don't want to take what we're saying on board, you don't want to take on this crazy cult-like lifestyle that we're all engaged in over here, just do 2 things for me, please. Well, for your family, really, for those that you care about. And they are this. Number 1, do not consume anything containing any plant fibre. Number 2, do not consume any seed oils whatsoever. Any vegetable oil of any kind. If you're going to do a third thing, it's knock out carbohydrates. If you're not going to do that, just do those first 2 for me, please. Those 2 things alone will make a vast difference to your life. All right, that's enough rambling from me for now. Great story. More emphasis on the dragons next time, if you don't mind. No, I'm kidding. It was, it's always good to hear the stories of people who have found the carnivore way of living and have worked out that it is the species-appropriate, species-specific diet. And, welcome to the family. Thanks for sharing your story with us. Now, I believe you had some questions for me, so why don't you fire those at me and I'll do my very best to come up with something remotely sensible.
Yeah, so I did have a question because, I told you that I'm a little bit of a fitness nut. And I do find that physique speaking is that because I was starting to drink a lot of milk, and I was like, oh, I'm carnivore, but then I noticed it's carnivore, it's milk. But I noticed that I started to get a lot of excess bloating.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was like, okay. I'm like, okay, well, there's carbohydrates in milk, so maybe that's why. But then also, at the same time, I started kind of experimenting, and I was like, what if I drank like an 8-ounce glass of milk before I went to go do some strenuous exercise? that help my exercise by spiking my insulin, or is it more optimal to do it after?
Right. Okay. There's a couple of threads there that are important, and I'll try and pick up on all of them if I can. The first one is that fully 60-70% of human beings alive on the planet today have an inborn intolerance to some degree or another to, usually it's the sugar that you find in dairy products, the lactose. Some people have almost no reaction to it and are fine, so they think. Some people might get a bit mucousy, a bit bloated-y, and then it's a sliding scale all the way up to some people who know absolutely I am completely intolerant to lactose and I must not go anywhere near lactose.
Right.
Fully 60 to 70% of the population have this issue. There are very few human beings alive who have the enzyme that breaks down lactose effectively and prevents this problem, basically. So it's very, very, by law of averages, it's incredibly likely that you have this problem. If you are of Asian descent, it's almost certain that you have lactose intolerance, unless you are descended from Genghis Khan, which many Mongolian folks are, and people from around that zone. So that's an interesting aside. If you are European, you are less likely to have it, although still it's highly expressed still. Or if you're an American coming from European stock, same deal. Okay, so that's that. In terms of carbohydrates for exercise performance, this is a robbing Peter to pay Paul situation. If you are fully, completely metabolically adapted to a carnivorous lifestyle, that means your chronic intake of carbohydrates is going to be remarkably low. And it should be, because the exact amount of carbohydrate required for human beings is the exact same amount as fiber is required, and that is none, ever. Exogenous carbohydrates, meaning carbohydrates that you consume into your body from outside your body, carbohydrates in the diet, are actually, it seems, completely contraindicated above a certain level for each individual human being. And the level for each individual is slightly different, of course, because we're all a little bit different in terms of our genotypic and phenotypic expression. And of course, obviously, the situation in which those genes are placed affect how those genes behave. So you could take two genetically identical twins, put them in two different situations, and their bodies would respond differently, right, despite having the exact same genes. Okay. If you are fully adapted to a carnivore diet, and that takes, on average, 26 plus or minus about 6 weeks on 100% carnivore. Longer if you're 95% carnivore, longer again if you're 90% carnivore, etc. Once you've got that adaptation, the carbohydrates will be of no benefit to you. In fact, they'll be a problem because they'll cause an insulin response that will mess up the levels of sugar in your blood with respect to the level in your cells. It will mess up the water balances in your cell. It will fuck up your performance more than it will actually help. If you're not fully adapted, then the carbs will help with your performance that day, but you'll pay the price for that. That's the robbing Peter to pay Paul thing. Because every time you eat carbs, any carbs, even if they come from a carnivorous source like milk, that will slow down your adaptation. That will slow down your, if you are still adapting. And if you are fully adapted, then you'll pay the price in terms of the effects of the sugar that you don't immediately oxidize during that exercise session. If there are any left, they will be stored as fat after the exercise session. If you hold off on consuming the carbs till after the exercise, then many of those carbs will be used to replete the glycogen balance in your cells, provided you're effectively breaking down the lactose, because it's a different form of sugar than glucose.
Right.
Okay, so you'll get some of it. The rest of it is going to be stored as fat. It is going to cause insulin responses that you may or may not want, depending. It's something that you need to weigh up individually, n equals 1, as to whether or not it actually on balance is beneficial, not just for exercise performance today, but in the long run, is it helpful? And that's a difficult experiment to do. But I think it's one that's worth doing as an individual.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely going to continue experimenting with that. I mean, this whole thing started as an experiment on myself until I started more and more about it. And like I said, things started making sense. But as far as the whole milk thing, I mean, I could see that as a problem, especially being pasteurized. You know, I think, yeah, it's starting to make sense now. Like, especially being pasteurized, you don't have that bacteria in there breaking down lactose naturally.
Yeah, exactly that. So you'll have probably, as someone from European stock, apparently. I mean, I don't want to assume how you identify. You might be an attack helicopter. I don't know. Let's say you're from Europe. You're a what?
I'm a camel.
A camel, excellent. Well, coming from obviously European stock, you know, you're going to have some degree of lactose intolerance. And I don't know what that is for you individually. It's on a sliding scale between none that you're aware of and complete no. Now, I know you're not a complete no, because you'd know that. You'd go, I can't touch lactose at all. It fucks me up immediately. So you're somewhere in there. So that's the first part. The second part is, if you are putting carbs in prior to exercise, then you are discouraging the natural process of gluconeogenesis to subserve. You're giving your body the idea that it doesn't need to do that. Bad thing. You're also encouraging some insulin response, which may or may not be indicated depending on your protein intake, your activity level, your electrolyte situation, because we don't want people getting into the Paul Saladino situation either.
Oh, shit. You know what? He was one of the first people I started listening to.
A lot of people say that.
When I actually got into it, he was one of the first. And then I don't know what happened. I was just listening to him one day, and he started eating an ungodly amount of fruit. And I was like, okay, dude. I'm like, there's no way, man. I'm like, you're eating an absurd amount of fruit. I'm like, with the amount of fruit you're gonna get, you're gonna give yourself diabetes. It doesn't matter how much fruit. Like, you're eating way too much.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any.
Yeah. At some point, Paul is going to pay a precipitous, sudden price on his overall health status in one or multiple of many potential areas where his system will fail, because his body will maintain its homeostasis as long as he possibly can.
Right.
But the diet that he is consuming will cost him his health. There's no two ways about it. That's not a question. It's not a maybe. If he continues doing what he's doing now, which is pouring 400 grams of carbohydrates down his stupid neck every day of his life, there is a price to pay for that, Paul, and you will pay it. Mark my words, son. Okay? Yeah. Stop it. And stop telling others to do the same thing. Okay? Because they're not surfing 3 hours every morning. They're not weight training every day as well. They're not as fit and active as you. Their health will fail them even more rapidly than yours will fail you on that diet. Anyway, this is not about Paul. This is about Chris and Chris's experience and Chris's questions. So, what's next?
So, it was right there. Oh, yeah. Do you believe that everybody, this is getting into some deeper stuff, but do you believe that everybody should kill their own animal? And not just for the sense of just killing it just to kill it.
Yeah.
I'm talking about killing it and eating it.
Yeah. I think personally, it's my opinion that it's an experience that people should have at least once in their life, where the reality of the situation of life is that an animal must die so that you can continue to live. It's the circle of life. That's how it is. We are predators. We are obligate hypercarnivores. We must kill sentient living human beings in order to live. We don't have a choice. That's the way it is. Well, you do have a choice. You can eat plants for a while, but your health will not stay with you. You will not thrive. You will not be in an ideal situation. You will not have the optimal lifespan. You will not have a good ride on this planet. You will suffer the consequences because you're not designed that way. And actually, if you do decide to eat nothing but plants, you are actually thereby responsible directly for the death of orders of magnitude more animals. Every plate of vegan food is associated, cause and effect, with thousands and thousands of animal deaths, every single plateful of that slop that you put down your necks. Okay? So sitting there saying, oh, we're doing this for ethical reasons so we don't kill animals, the fuck you are. You're killing vastly more animals than we are.
Right. And killing yourself at the same time.
Yeah, and killing yourself at the same time, exactly, right. So as such, people should absolutely at least once kill an animal yourself that you're going to eat. Yes.
Okay.
I mean, I've done it multiple times, obviously, multiple times.
Yeah. Now we can definitely be friends.
Good, good. So long as you understand that pineapple goes on pizza when you do eat pizza. And that disagreeing with me is hate speech. Hate speech. It's the law here in the Meat Militia.
Yeah, no, because it's I'm a hunter, so I had to ask that.
Cool.
My last question. What do you think is the best argument to have or the best argument against veganism? Because I have one in mind that I believe that you could use.
Okay. My best argument against veganism is that when you look at the totality of the science, the actual science, and that's all outside of this ring-fenced area of ideology we call human nutrition science, by the way. That's all bought and paid for. None of that is actually science. It's ideology, it's propaganda, it's spin doctrine. It's all look over there, shiny thing.
Yeah.
The actual science tells us what a human being, what our ecological niche is. Where is the great design of nature, or the creator, if you believe in such, or it doesn't matter. There is a place for human beings. There is a way we are designed to interact with the world in which we live, and that is that we are definitely, absolutely designed to live off the flesh and fat of animals and not plants. What tells us that? Anthropology, the actual hard sciences in the anthropological area. We're talking about isotope testing of all sorts of different isotopes now, and there's a whole bunch of new stuff coming in the last few weeks as well, a new isotope that once again corroborates that for 4.5 million years we have evolved eating the meat and fat of animals almost exclusively, and not carbohydrate-containing materials, and not starch-containing materials, and not plants so much at all.
Yeah.
Okay? So that's hard science. Isotope testing, no question, absolutely, that's how human beings have fed ourselves. Ergo, if you understand Darwinian, I'm not even going to say theory, because it's not a theory, it's a fact. Evolution by selection, both positive and negative selection pressures do change the genes that are passed forward, absolutely, and do inform our organ systems, our biological pathways, all of that stuff, which all point in the direction of we eat meat and fat, we don't eat plants.
Yeah.
So we then look at the anecdotes, we look at people who try to live on a species inappropriate, species inspecific diet for examples of veracity, fitness, attractiveness, wellness in general, all of that stuff. And anyone who's been consuming that kind of diet for 5 years or more, and you'll struggle to find one. They are emaciated or obese, nowhere in between generally. They are ashen of pallor. They are poorly looking in the way they hold themselves, their posture. Their faces are sunken, their eyes are sunken to the back of their skulls. They look tired, they sound dreadful, they look dreadful. They're leathery often. Yeah. So to me, that's enough to me. But let's hear your argument, and if it's more parsimonious and quick than mine, that's great, because I need to shorten down the message.
Yeah, well, it kind of, because I've been listening to a lot of vegan debates lately, and one of them I've mostly been listening to is, his name is Joey.
Yep.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah, I know Joey.
So, and the whole, I got something that throws a wrench right in the face of their whole argument of animal abuse. Now, don't get me wrong. We are humans. We have the intelligence and we have the responsibility to treat animals with as much dignity as possible until the end.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So, however, their argument is something to the extreme. Obviously, you know this, but in case for anybody who is listening, there's just no reason to kill, ever. No suffering. Even if you put a bullet between their eyes, they wouldn't even feel anything. So I got something that flies in the face of that. I have been reading a couple of studies. I wouldn't really call it's not in your terms, actually in anyone's terms, really. I didn't perform the research. I read on it. So I read on the research being done, and plants can suffer too in themselves.
Sure, in their way.
Plants are living things.
Yeah.
And I was actually just reading something today where the plants, not in the same way that you and I or a cow or a chicken might feel pain, however, in some way do actually feel pain. So in the sense of, stimuli, they don't, when you step on their root, they don't say ow, but, they do somewhat feel pain in a sense.
Yes.
Quite possibly. And the whole argument that I've been seeing is that, trees don't have brains. Trees don't have nerves. They don't feel pain. It's like, how in the fuck do you know? It's simply because the study hasn't come out yet. It's because I know you guys love your studies. I know you love misreading studies and then throwing them out into the universe to try to prove your point.
Yeah.
But how do you know that they don't? When you pluck a carrot out of the ground, you're taking it out of its natural habitat. You're butchering it. That's my entire argument to that. Is what did that study say? Is that the study said is that once they started plucking the leaves of a plant and it started putting off a god awful odor, as if it was in distress.
Yes.
The plant was in distress.
Yeah.
And you're going to preach to us or the general population that, harming animals is bad. Okay, what about the plants?
Yeah. Okay, so the argument there is that in their own way, plants do have a distress response. Of course they do. They're living things. You damage and destroy the tissues of a living thing, and it will experience distress in whatever way it's capable of experiencing that.
Right.
Yeah, their argument's going to be that plants are not sentient. Fine, okay, whatever if you like, but that doesn't get you out of the ethical dilemma that in monocropping, which is how your food is produced, and in shipping those monocropped plants from all four corners of the globe, if there were any corners, to where you are sitting, to pile high on your plate, to stuff in your gut, just so that you can eat that, gain a very small amount of nutrient from it. The rest of it will sit in your gut and rot until you shit it out, destroying your colonic function while you're at it and ripping it to bits while you're there. All right?
Yeah.
Every single plateful of that stuff is absolutely responsible for the death directly of thousands of animals that are definitely sentient. Thousands.
Right.
Me, for example, sitting where I am now in my holier-than-thou temple here, with my taking the ethical high ground here, we eat almost nothing but beef in this house. Most of the beef that we've consumed this year came from a cow that was born here on this property, lived its life here on this property, used to sit or stand about 10 yards from where I'm sitting right now, window, a bit of yard, fence, grass the cow used to eat. That's where it liked to be. And we had some good discussions, me and him. We really got on quite well together. We shoot the breeze, we chewed the cud. Well, he was chewing the cud. I was chewing some of his ancestors at the time. Anyway, he also died here on this property, just over there. I was there. I was witness to it. I didn't pull the trigger myself, but there are laws in New Zealand. You have to get a professional to do it. Okay, fine. And then he went away for butchering and stuff, and then he came back, and now he's in the freezer. No air miles. No other animals died whatsoever. In fact, while he was alive, he contributed to the cycle that allowed thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of animals to continue to live on this land, which he was regenerating with his activities upon it.
Yep.
And his brother is yet to be born, and his brother is currently inside his mum, and she's still here. And, she'll probably be next, to be fair, because she's a bit older. But that's how it is,
Yeah, that's the entire circle of life. Everything kills everything to live.
So myself,
it's simple.
My partner, 2 small dogs live here, and another family whose cow it actually was. We're not the farmers, they are. We just rent the property. We got a lot of the meat as well as a neighbourly thing. But that one cow feeds, there's a family of 4 over there, plus a dog, family of 2 plus 2 dogs here. We're still eating off one animal 6 months later, between all of us.
That is, that is definitely, I really, really, really wish that I would have that kind of situation. I really do. Unfortunately, I have to drive 2 hours to go out to a place I need or I want to hunt, and I'm like, and then, it's it's funny because I spent like $200 on a piece of cow, or what was it, the standing rib roast. Pretty much a bunch of ribeye steaks. So, and fortunately, I find anyone in my situation, you live in the city, you don't have that, you don't have that luxury, and hopefully that's something we all, somewhat strive for. Just know that it's a very small price to pay for the health of you and your family, because trust me, it's nothing to shake a stick at. This is something that you might want to look up and actually think about doing. Yep. Me and my family are thriving off of it, and actually, because primarily I go hog hunting, so I actually still got 2 big thighs and a few tenderloins in my freezer that I plan on cooking up this week. Yeah, no, I
Good
mean,
stuff.
and especially the whole thing about sentience.
Yep.
Sentience. And, you know, this whole sentience thing. Oh, you know, animals primarily run off of instinct. I
Sure.
mean, there is still some sentience there. There's some, you know, ability to somewhat reason, not nearly to the extent of humans. But they primarily run off of instinct, which is exactly what trees do. The oak tree, for instance, will actually, if it senses a biochemical signature in the air of a young oak tree, it'll send out a chemical to kill it.
Yeah.
Into the air. So, you know why? Because it's competition and it's instinct. So that sentience thing can kiss my ass.
Yep. Good. Well, that's a great place to finish off. I agree with everything pretty much you've had to say there. Chris, it's been a valuable experience to get to know you and to add you to our family of people that have been on this fine channel to tell us your story and to explain how carnivore absolutely destroyed your health, how you died of scurvy 6 weeks later, how you became constipated and got bowel cancer, and not to mention the other forms of cancer that you got, of course, because of all the red meat consumption, and not to mention the heart disease that you've already died of because of that dangerously high cholesterol and saturated fat that you've been eating. No. Just absolute ridiculous fucking nonsense, all of it. None of it's backed by science at all. It's propaganda, it's scaremongering, it's smoke and mirrors. Don't get sucked in, people. Stick around this fine channel, this actually science-based channel, and you'll learn a lot of things. If nothing else, you'll learn how to curse like a trooper. And that's valuable too. All right, boys and girls, thanks for joining us today. Join us next time when most likely someone will be wrong on the interwebs, because there really is a fuck ton of that going on. And for those that want an exact metric, a fuck ton is exactly 10 shitloads. All right, see you next time. Ciao for now.